Welcome on into the podcast. I'm Brett.
I'm Dorian.
And this is our Thursday Throwback. We're starting our Star Wars series, A New Hope. Dorian, what'd you think about this?
It's really good.
All right, well, that's our podcast.
That's it. So thank you all for listening. You can reach us out on Twitter at You Heard Nerds, our Patreon at You Heard with Nerds.
Yep.
Just kidding.
We're just kidding. But that does sum up the podcast.
I mean,
pretty much.
I mean,
it's real good.
Yeah, it's real good. Real good.
So yeah, for those of you who are listening to all these kind of consecutively, we'll kind of go through why we chose to start with A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I was reading different interesting ways to watch the series, and so one of them that stood out to me was, I can't remember the name of it, but basically it goes episode 4, because that's essentially where it all started.
Yep.
Episode 4, episode 5, because we get the reveal of Vader.
Yep.
Who
he
Luke's
is
father.
and what he's about.
Then we go back to his story. So we're going to go 4, 5. Then we're going to go 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to go 6, and then 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Which we probably won't do a throwback on episode 9 just because we did a deep dive on it before. So if you want to get our opinions on that, just go over and check that episode out again if you want kind of the full run. We might just do like a wrap-up episode or something like that, maybe, to kind of talk through like what we thought overall and mention episode 9.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, by the time
we might be Star Wars'd out.
Yeah, by the time we record the one for episode 9, I believe it should probably be out on Blu-ray, DVD, and whatnot. So
I think it's already on digital.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we can rewatch it, and I can see whether or not my opinion stayed the same or if it changed. So
yeah, totally. But not going to super crazy depth on it or
exactly,
anything.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll get started. So I want to talk about just, first impressions of the movie. Not like okay. So first impression of the movie, like, when did you first see this? And then also from this rewatch, what were your kind of your first impressions rewatching it?
So, tough question to answer here, just because I don't know if I can remember specifically when my first time watching this was. I think I watched it. It was on TV one time. My parents sat me down and said, "You need to watch this." I think it was like maybe about 4 or 5, and I just remember this was the first movie that I was both amazed and terrified by at the same time, just because
I get it.
Because there are parts that are pretty intense for a kid, like like the sand people, or like that part in the cantina where he cuts the guy's arm off and there's blood.
Yeah,
which
that's the only time there's blood, I think, in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. One of the few times, yeah. But,
from a severed limb, at least.
Yeah, from a severed limb. Yeah, it's like they didn't make cauterizing with the lightsaber canon just quite yet here.
No,
but yeah, with this rewatch, it's kind of hard to really have a newfound opinion on it, because this is a movie I grew up with. It's kind of almost just a way of life. It is what it is. You've just known how it's been for the longest period of time. But I will say that 90s CGI for the remastered edition, man, George Lucas, you should have just left it alone right there.
That's my biggest gripe with this whole entire thing, was that the added CGI just took you out of it at some points.
Yeah, I mean,
completely.
And I haven't not watched the original cut of these movies ever. I mean, I've watched the bits and pieces online in terms of what's been changed, what hasn't been changed. But for the most part, I grew up with the remastered editions just because those were the ones that were widely available on VHS when I was a kid.
Yeah. For me, I think I'm kind of in the same boat. I honestly can't remember watching this for the first time. I do remember every time I was sick, my parents let me watch, whatever I wanted in my room.
Yeah.
Because you got the flu or whatever.
Yeah, it's your quarantine zone.
It's my quarantine zone. But we had the little TV VHS combo.
Yeah,
the little tiny ones.
Yeah, no, I had that.
And I would put it on my what do you call it? Like your bedside table.
Sure, yeah.
So I'd set it on there, and I'd play.
Just
those were my go-to. Was the
lay in bed and just watch Star Wars there.
And I did have the original cuts of the movies on VHS. So I remember years later seeing the CGI and I thought it looked good at the time.
Well, of course.
I was like,
mean,
whoa.
Yeah.
Like when I think they might have put out another set of VHSs and a DVD. And I think it was probably around that time, maybe like late 90s, early 2000s, around there somewhere. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. But now the real question is, do you still have the VHS?
I don't know.
Because if you do, you might, there might be some
Money
cash
to be
in
made,
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
My parents might. I doubt it though.
Yeah.
I doubt it because I bought them all. I have all of them on Blu-ray.
Yeah, exactly.
But
even then, they altered it even further.
yeah. And I watched it on Disney Plus, which I'm not even sure which version that is.
That is, I think, the Blu-ray version.
Is it?
Because
the
sure
graphics look horrible.
Yeah. No, I believe that is the. Yeah,
they just need to cut it out. Honestly, Disney, please heed our call and just cut out the CGI. It doesn't add anything to the movie.
Well, I mean,
it just elongates some scenes that are already there.
Well, I mean, the thing is like Disney Plus does have the issue of, their subscribership or membership dwindling. You put the original cuts of the trilogy, of the first trilogy on there, you get you see a bump in numbers for sure.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just remember as a kid watching them, and I was so used to the 90s TV shows that the visual effects was really kind of similar. Like,
yeah,
it wasn't like, it was really cutting edge for the 70s, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was still into it because I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, it holds up. And it was the, mid 90s at that point, probably when I first watched them.
Yeah.
But I just remember, like, even my rewatching of this, obviously it hasn't changed my mind on it.
No.
As far as rankings go, I had ranked this in our Rise of Skywalker episode number 2.
Yeah.
And it's staying there until we rewatch Empire because I haven't seen Empire in a while, and so I want to rewatch that to make sure it stays there. It might go to number 1 because this is a airtight movie.
No, I mean
for the most part.
For the most part, I mean, yeah, sure, there are some scenes that you could probably pull out of it, but at the same time, it's world building, especially considering how this is the first movie. You have to have world building for like this whole new universe that you're introducing to the audience.
Yeah, and I think the foresight that George had was just insane, knowing what he wanted to do. And we probably got a way grander product than he ever thought of delivering.
Yeah, no,
But talking about the Clone Wars from the get-go.
Mm-hmm, yeah, with that conversation with Obi-Wan here. And
yeah, and even Leia talked about it,
Yep, exactly.
And so just that whole thing, like bringing up things that have already happened and then having the insight of like, as a kid, I was really confused watching this movie, like episode 4.
Why's that?
They talk about a lot of stuff like the Clone Wars, like other things.
Stuff that
like,
doesn't happen on screen. Like,
no, you're like, I have no idea what the heck they're talking about. I feel like I should.
Yeah, they reference stuff that, hasn't even been explored yet.
Right.
Here.
And so I was just confused as a kid, or like why Vader was on the, their ship and what was he looking for and what is this thing? And
yeah.
So I was all really confused by that and didn't really figure it out until I was older. But man, hats off to George for being just ahead of time knowing at least that he'd involved the Clone Wars and what that meant.
Yeah, well, I have in our notes that even a step further than that, like when Luke is talking to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru over the blue milk here and all that.
Oh yeah.
He mentions Obi-Wan, saying like, yeah, this droid's looking for Obi-Wan. You know anything about that? And they have that look where they're like, oh no, he's starting to figure things out. It's like, my gosh, the amount of foresight you have to have on that to like really like, say like, okay, these guys know something and they don't want him to know about it here. So,
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that those were like my first impressions, and first impressions of the rewatch was just, it just holds up. It's so good. Like,
yeah, I mean,
it was really hard. Like timing of stuff was different for me because I remember as a kid, I always felt like Obi-Wan left the movie really early. But we were an hour and a half in before he died.
Yeah.
And so there's only about 30 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah.
And so as a kid, I just remember it feeling like it was really soon.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was because I really liked the first hour and a half and didn't care for like that little part, like where it goes from the Death Star to like the Rebel base. I didn't care about that stuff. I didn't care until they got in their X-wings and started flying around.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, yeah, no, well, and maybe you were thinking at it as the trilogy as a whole here.
Yeah,
possibly.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
but so let's just talk about the rewatch.
Yeah.
Because like there's a lot to like read, kind of like not rediscover, but just to re-feel through the experience. Like, okay, as a kid, the whole nostalgia thing coming up, but yeah, what did you think about it?
So I think this may be the most ambitious movie ever made. Like, that's one of the thoughts I had during the rewatch, just because you kind of have to figure like
more ambitious than Batman vs Superman.
Yes.
Oh.
Yep, I would say so.
Okay.
Reason being is just because I don't know if you've watched that documentary that they have about the making of the first three movies, the Empire Dreams.
Yep.
Basically kind of talking about like what movies were like at the time, what was kind of accepted, and basically like how like they had to get this movie made, all the hoops they had to jump through, just everything about it. It's like, and just like, trying to like introduce an entire new world that's completely separate from, our world here. I mean, during that time, I think was pretty much unprecedented in terms of like, actually doing it like really well or really successfully here on like a live action big screen. No, I think the fact that, with all the trouble that was going on behind the scene with this movie, it's a miracle that it turned out as good as it did here.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And I also think this is probably the most weird Star Wars movie out of the Star Wars movies, just because this is what I think they were kind of trying to play with the idea of like, okay, what is actually Star Wars? And there's like weird stuff that you don't see really pop up ever again. Like, you have like the cantina scene where it's like really weird. I mean, they kind of did do that in Force Awakens, where they had like, a whole bunch of aliens running around and stuff, but
Mandalorian too.
Yeah, Mandalorian too. But, there's literally a monster in the trash compactor out just nowhere in space here. Like, somebody had to like put that thing down there, or it had to like smuggle itself aboard like the construction of the Death Star. It's just like, who thinks of that?
Yeah, I mean, it could eat the garbage. I don't know, like.
But then what's the point of the trash compactor?
Well, it just compacts it. It doesn't like get rid of it.
Well, sure, but I mean, I don't know.
Maybe then
I feel
he
like
poops it out, then they just flush the whole thing.
I feel like you would kill the monster too, probably.
It depends. I mean, how like tight are you getting it? Yeah.
Yeah. But,
or where did the monster come from? Was it like a little space barnacle?
Or does it have like a little tunnel it escapes to or something?
Right.
Yeah.
Was it someone's pet that got loose? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
It was really weird, and that scene is different. I don't think it's different for Star Wars, but like they're already like in trouble.
Yeah.
And then there's just like so they get in there, and then like that thing's they're pulling Luke down, and then the walls start coming in. I'm like, you probably could have cut the whole
trash compactor monster out.
Just had the walls closing in, because that's way more dangerous than some little monster pulling you under, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
still dangerous.
Still dangerous, but I mean, like, Luke was the only one that was actually gonna get like killed at that point, and plus, you can solve that monster problem with a blaster versus like the walls closing on you, not so much. Yeah. So, but another thing that's kind of weird and out there was like the sandcrawler scene where at the beginning of the movie, like when you're like inside of it and you're seeing like all the droids around. It's a very like 70s sci-fi vibe that they
big
got
time,
going on there.
Yeah, definitely shot differently from the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I thought it was interesting when you pulled that up just a second ago when you showed me the tall Jawas.
Yeah, there are tall Jawas.
Yeah, normal sized Jawas.
Yeah, that are
in the movie.
In the movie, they're like just about as tall as C-3PO here.
Yeah, which I'm not even sure how tall is Anthony Daniels, because I don't think he's super tall.
I don't think he's super tall. I think he's probably like, I don't know, maybe like 5'10", maybe somewhere around there, maybe 5'8". I don't know, but I'd have to look up those stats. But no, I mean, but long story short, like, average size human size here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that rewatching this just again instilled appreciation in me. I liked the movie a lot, and it was just kind of like, reaffirming where I placed it on my list.
Yeah.
I guess. But it's your favorite, isn't it? Of the
Yeah,
Star Wars
no,
movies?
it is number one in my book, just because, I mean, well, I'll talk about it like, probably in our final thoughts, but I mean, it's a classic among classics here. Yeah.
I mean, it was a phenomenon for the most part.
Oh, absolutely.
People standing in line for forever just to watch it over and over again.
I mean, you could probably release it today, maybe even like, like in theaters, like do a re-release.
Did they ever do like a 3D release or something? I can't
They
remember.
did for the prequels.
Okay.
Here. And then like the 3D train kind of came and went. Then I think they just stopped at like Attack of the Clones, I want to say, somewhere around there.
Okay.
But no, I mean, I think if you played that, like, every once in a while, even if it's like one of the shoddy, remastered editions with the bad CGI and all that, people would still go see it. Now, if you do the original VHS or the original theatrical cut,
that'd be cool.
yeah, that'd bring everybody to the yard.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing, like for the rewatch, I remember more all the parts that were added versus the movie itself. So all the elongated scenes with CGI.
Yeah, the
all
Jabba scene.
The background. Yeah, the Jabba scene,
Yeah,
which Jabba does not get introduced till Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, and you also see Boba Fett in that scene too here.
And what?
Yeah, no, he's in that scene.
Oh, man, I missed that. I don't know.
He is in that scene.
Weird.
And yeah, which was like, because again, I grew up with that edition here. So I always thought, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I know who they're talking about when in like Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah, Boba.
About like, well, Boba and Jabba. And so like by the time you get to Return of the Jedi, it's like, okay, yeah, I already know who these people are. I got like, an idea what they're about here and all that.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. But
Yeah.
It was just weird that seeing it, I was just like, oh, that's interesting. And I think when they originally shot, at least this was in the making.
Yeah.
When they originally shot the scene, it was a human.
Yeah, no,
Jabba was not an alien.
Yeah, no, Jabba was supposed to be just this just a human that was just basically crime lord, and that was pretty much all there was to it. He wasn't like a slug that, rolled around and just, had that laugh or anything like that.
So adding on to what we're talking about now, why do we think this movie became an instant classic?
So I think it made sci-fi more mainstream. I know Star Trek came before that, and it, kind of introduced like, I would say sci-fi to, a more mainstream audience. But I think this one was like, this gave the people who weren't into Star Trek a sci-fi thing that they could appreciate. And it's like widely appreciated. Like, it's, I think, pretty unprecedented, like the amount of success that Star Wars had in terms of like bringing sci-fi to a new audience here.
Well, I think it's even different from Star Trek, because Star Trek is straight up sci-fi.
Yeah, this is
space fantasy.
Yeah, space fantasy. Yeah. But I think one of the things that it does do differently in comparison to Star Trek, just because even though like these two franchises are really different from each other.
Yeah, super different. They take place in space. That's about the only similarity.
They get compared a lot here, and but I think they don't do like a whole bunch of like science lingo, like, because Star Trek, that's like 90% of the conversation here. But no, it takes, like, it's a space fantasy. It takes fantasy elements that you would find like in like a fairy tale, or even like in tales of like knights and all that.
And there's a magic system, essentially.
There's like space wizards and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it takes those fantasy elements and puts it in a movie about spaceships and lasers. Here you have a princess and royalty and all that business.
Yeah.
You have laser swords.
Laser swords.
Yeah. And I think it redefined.
Sorry. I was going to say, that reminds me of episode 1 when Anakin goes, yeah, I saw your laser sword. I'm like, that's the only time in Star Wars it's referred to as a laser sword and not a lightsaber.
I think I think
He's talking to Qui-Gon when he sees it on him.
I'm pretty sure he says lightsaber.
No, he doesn't.
Does he not?
100% guarantee he doesn't.
Okay, we'll have to debunk this a little bit later. But
Yeah.
I know in Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker does say, like, what do you think was going to happen? You were going to come get me, and I was going to go out there with a laser sword or something like that and like fight off the bad guys. So, but anyhow, but no, I think this movie redefined what kind of movies you can make, because it showed that there is an audience for escapism, because most of the movies that were coming out during that time, you know, were grounded in reality in some way, shape, or form, or had ties to the modern day world here.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't watched a ton of 70s movies except for this one, really.
Yeah. No, exactly. Well, I mean, and there's probably a reason for that, because
They don't hold up.
Yeah, exactly. But no,
Just saying.
And it pioneered visual effects in movies. I mean,
agree. Yeah.
You know, they were doing stuff that nobody else was really doing at that time. And, you know, it effectively built the Star Wars universe, which is like, that's a
big feat.
That's a really big feat when you really think about it, because, I mean, we take it for granted just because Star Wars is so ingrained into just like nerd culture and just
culture in general.
Culture in general, exactly. So it's like, you know, everybody's like, oh yeah, that's just Star Wars here. It's like, okay, but you had to like literally go out and like make it Star Wars here.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that this movie does really well, it gives you multiple characters to relate to. So like, for example, if you thought Obi-Wan was like just some delusional old guy just ranting about space magic, you had Han, who was like your realist that you could identify with. If you thought Han was kind of a selfish prick, you had Luke, who was like kind of the more traditional moral hero.
Yeah,
of the
totally.
bunch.
And then you had a cool princess who wasn't just a princess.
Yeah, no, she actually
diplomat and could use a blaster.
Yeah, she wasn't helpless here.
No, exactly. She wasn't the damsel in distress. She was in distress.
She was,
but once she was, you know, freed,
yeah,
she
like,
could handle her own.
She's like, all right, I'm just gonna, you know, do some stuff here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and for me, yeah, I agree. I think visual effects are legit in this. Great cast.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Perfect cast, honestly.
Yeah.
You know, airtight story and script, and like the first big space fantasy epic.
Mm-hmm.
Other than like, because they had like the Flash Gordon and stuff like that,
but they had Flash Gordon.
This was like a next level type of thing.
But I mean, let's be honest here. Like, how many people are watching Flash Gordon right now?
I don't know, a couple people.
Yeah, how many people are watching Star Wars right now? I mean, come on,
everyone.
I mean, the difference is night and day.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, speaking along the lines of that cast, it's really interesting that this is the biggest movie franchise ever made. I mean, I don't think it's even close here. And the fact that really Harrison Ford was like the only one that actually had like an acting career that took off. I mean, you had Mark Hamill do like a lot of like voice work and all that, but in terms of like actual like Hollywood movies, he's like really the only one that actually like landed anything beyond that.
I mean, yeah. I don't know what stuff that Carrie Fisher was in. I think this is like the biggest thing, though.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
There's other movies.
I'm sure there was probably a couple other movies, but I think people just.
It was really odd to me though that was kind of the only way it went. And then I didn't even know this until I was older, but you know, Mark Hamill was a big part of my childhood, not only as Luke but as the Joker from Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah. Oh, and probably like a lot more TV shows.
Oh, a ton.
He voices a lot of people. Like he was Fire Lord Ozai in Avatar: Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know, let's talk about the characters a little bit. Obviously, you guys know the characters.
I mean, if you don't, stop listening to this podcast. Just go watch the dang movie.
Yeah. So start with Luke. Luke's obviously he is the main character for all intents and purposes.
Yeah. No, he is.
Intents and purpose. You know, he's definitely that classic hero caricature, farmer turned knight. He has the call to action. He declines the call. He wants to stay home.
Well,
he wants to escape, but he doesn't want to go and be a Jedi. After the conversation with Obi-Wan,
yeah,
he's kind of like, I don't know. And then his aunt and uncle are killed, which thrusts him into action. He's like, all right, let's go take these guys down.
Well, right, yeah. I mean,
He's like, I got nothing left here.
Yeah, I mean, he does want to get off the rock.
He does, but he's kind of like, I'm not going to abandon them, which also talks about his character. You know, he's not going to abandon his family,
right?
Because he just wants to go fly around in space,
right? He's not selfish that way. It takes like him like actually having to lose his ties to what keeps him on Tatooine in order to actually like be called to action here.
Yeah, and I'd say Luke's a very prototypical hero through most of these movies.
Yeah, for the most part.
Until we get to the sequel trilogy, then he's not.
Well, even in like the next two movies, like you really start to see Luke wrestle in terms of like can I still be a hero at the end of all of this here? Because spoiler alert. I mean, he does get tempted to the dark side, and there's that part in Return of the Jedi where it seems like he comes pretty dang close to like actually
when he's fighting his dad.
Yeah.
No. So he's a prototypical hero. You could pull him out of any page as far as like, at least from this movie, he's very prototypical. You could literally look at most forms of literature and find a Luke character.
Yeah, he is the young hero that has a lot of potential. That
coming of age, he's becoming a man. You know
exactly.
Wants to follow in his father's footsteps, even though he doesn't know what that means.
Yep.
At all.
Nope.
But yeah, then you got anything else for Luke?
No, I think that's all that really needs to be said about it. I mean, like I said, I think his character arc gets a lot more interesting and detailed and different once as you get to, episode 5 and 6 here.
Yeah, and I liked Luke was probably my favorite character growing up as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, because he was the closest that you could relate to.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so then we got Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of the like him and the droids are kind of the MacGuffins of this story. Like later on, it's Yoda. He's kind of that, but he's like that crazy old guy that turns out to be magical. He's the animal on the side of the road. He thinks ordinary. I guess if you're talking the hero's journey, and he has magical powers. Yeah,
or he's the wise old wizard that he's got to seek out to receive the quest from. Here,
totally, which is pretty much what he is.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as Obi-Wan, the only thing I really have is that I still think the lightsaber scene's weak. Where he dies.
Oh, like
when he's fighting Vader.
The Vader fight?
It is, but I understand it was before the prequels, but having the prequels nowadays, having episode 3 specifically, going back and watching this, you're like, what happened?
Well,
you're really rusty, man. Yeah, both of you and Vader.
You got old, yeah. But no, what? And I was gonna be like, when people talk, smack about this scene, I was kind of on the side of like, okay, man, calm down. This was the 70s. They didn't have the fancy, CGI and special effects that we have nowadays here. It's not like you can't judge the film just based on that. But then you look at like the lightsaber fight in Empire Strikes Back, and that's a lot more. That has a lot more creativity and action here. So, yeah.
I mean, they were trying to figure it out, I guess. But honestly, rewatching that scene, it wasn't as bad as I remember. I mostly remember that last part where it's just like Obi-Wan like parrying.
Oh yeah,
the whole time.
And the lightsaber looks really weird. It looks like it's almost turning off in a second here. And I thought that was what was going on as a kid. I was like, oh no, did he not replace his batteries or something?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, wow. And I mean, if you're in that camp of like, that fight scene's not good. There's that remastered fight scene on YouTube that does a pretty good job of like.
I think it's called Star Wars Reimagined or something.
I think so. Yeah, that essentially redoes that fight scene.
They must have been really passionate about that.
I think so. Yeah.
Of like, man, this scene really stunk. Yeah. Or not stunk, but it wasn't as good as we know it could have been now.
I mean.
And so let's make it better.
Yeah, just given like how the prequels are here, yeah.
Which I dug. I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Han and Chewie, not much to say. He's a scoundrel with a good heart. Mm-hmm. You just think he's a scoundrel for most of the movie because he gets paid and he leaves essentially.
Yeah.
And then right when Luke needs him,
he's like, All right, I guess I'll.
He's like, woohoo! Takes him out.
I guess I'll clock in for some overtime here. Yeah.
It was interesting because like you see him shoot down Vader and the other guy.
Yeah.
And that one other ship explode and Vader's plane just kind of spins out of the way.
Well, yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, but so like he shoots the one TIE fighter, then the other TIE fighter is trying to avoid getting shot, and it hits Vader's.
I don't remember, something like that. Yeah,
and then he starts spinning out of control here.
Yep.
But
he's fine. He wasn't on the Death Star.
He wasn't. Yeah. So worked out just fine.
Yep.
But no, I think Han and Chewie steal the show. I think they are the best characters in this movie here, just because they have like the best dialogue, they have the best, or the most interesting character motivations here, where he's not just like the prototypical, I'm just gonna do this because it's the right thing. He's like, no, I gotta eat. I want to get paid here, and.
Well, yeah, in Luke's conversation with him, like, she's a princess.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be rich.
Exactly.
Like, Luke's trying to seduce him, basically, to come on this mission.
Yep.
I love the character of Han.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he's like more of a everyman, like.
Kinda, yeah.
He is the inner turmoil of most men, I feel like, where it's like, you got to look out for yourself.
Don't get involved.
But you also want to do good,
Yeah, deep down, you like if the world was like,
at war.
Well, or if things were easier, or if like things were like less risk involved, or if things weren't as much of a hassle, you would type thing. But yeah, no, it's interesting you bring that up, because I think most people growing up watching this, they identify with Luke first and foremost, and then like as you grow up, you kind of identify more with Han here. Yeah.
Which he is supposed to be an older character too. But
he's like about 10 years older,
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chewie's Chewie. He's just cool, big old pet. That's what, honestly, in my head as a kid, I'm like, oh, that's Han's pet.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because originally they were gonna have Chewie just have like a British voice, and like not have him like actually just speak Wookiee, or like have him just like with the growls and all that here.
That would have been weird, I feel like.
Oh, it was really weird. And because you, like I said in that documentary Empire of Dreams, you actually get to see the scene where Obi-Wan leaves Luke, and he goes turn off the tractor beam, and he says like the Force will be with you always, and then he leaves and the door shuts, and Chewie like goes like murr 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 murr, and then in the scene in the documentary, Chewie just says in a British voice, "That man's mad."
Are you serious?
Yes, that's what.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's what he says. I might have to pull it up for you
that's
later.
Funny.
Here, but yeah.
Yeah, and then Leia, she's like the not so classic princess. She's in need of rescuing, but she can handle a blaster, so she's not completely inept. She's part of the gang. She's taking them down. And she's originally, like, especially in this movie, she was not originally supposed to be Luke's sister.
Really good to know, just because otherwise
the kiss.
I got some questions for George.
It was a kiss on the cheek though.
Well, okay, but I'm talking like you get to Empire Strikes Back, that kiss on.
Okay, well, even then she wasn't supposed to be Luke's sister.
Right.
They just said there's another.
Right, exactly.
And George originally had planned for it to literally be a whole different character.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was never going to be Leia until they got to Return of the Jedi.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she was going to be integral because they were planning on doing the prequels and then another sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And she was going to be a big part of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, she was going to be the main character of the sequel trilogy, I think. But
alongside Luke.
Yeah, because I think Luke was supposed to go to the dark side in the original sequel trilogy, I think.
I don't know, but probably not. But I think that because Luke was going to be training up a new generation of Jedi, she was going to be like one of the first ones, basically.
Right, yeah.
Which Leia was. We found that out from episode 9, so that's something good.
We did, yeah. So, yeah, no, no.
But yeah, that kiss is way different. But she also kisses Han.
Well, she does, yes. But, again, it's like,
she's just, she gets around a little bit.
Yeah. Just family business.
Speaking of family, Vader.
Yeah.
Classic big bad guy with mysterious powers.
I would say the classic bad guy.
Yeah, totally.
Because you think of iconic movie villains, your your first thought is probably going to go to Darth Vader.
And especially like the force choke scene, you're like, wait, what? He has powers? Like, how's this working?
Yeah, exactly. Well, not to mention, I put this in the show notes, but that force choke scene during this rewatch, I kind of realized something, that this is kind of the equivalent of like Heath Ledger's pencil trick in the Dark Knight, where it's something that takes you by surprise, but it also really establishes like the menace and like the gravity of the villain here.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But no, I mean, obviously, like Vader is. There's not really too much to really talk about in Vader about this movie, just because he just serves the bad guy role, but he has like the past here. That you kind of don't know a whole lot about. That Obi-Wan trained him, that Vader betrayed him, and that he has a grudge to deal with him with. But yeah.
I mean, you don't even know that in this movie. You think Vader killed Anakin, who, Vader was his pupil and went to the dark side, but he killed Luke's dad, supposedly.
Yeah, because Obi-Wan is a compulsive liar.
He is.
But, no, I think, and I think, I'm just really glad they went with James Earl Jones's voice, because have you seen the original voice they were going to use for Darth Vader?
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a angry Scottish voice or something like that, and it just does not. It's just not the same at all. Let's just put it that way.
Well, hey, let's go back to Obi-Wan real quick, because I forgot to talk about his compulsive liar.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does not recognize R2 or C-3PO.
Yeah, according to
he's like, I never owned droids.
Well, unless
he didn't, but.
Right. Unless like that is just like a plot hole that was just looked over because of the prequel trilogy, or maybe he was just straight up lying. But it's like, why would you lie about that? You legitimately have nothing to lose by telling him, oh yeah, I know these guys.
Yeah. I don't know either.
Yeah.
He lied about a lot of stuff.
I can understand like lying about Luke's dad, just because.
Yeah. Trying to protect him.
Well, protect him. You also don't want. You also want to make sure that he's not going to be influenced or like wanting to, follow in his dad's footsteps here. All
right. So, do you want to talk about other movies that led up to this movie?
Yeah. So obviously, when you do like a spin-off movie or like prequel movies that are set before a certain movie, you have a tendency to like affect like the way the movie is seen, or how create plot holes or something like that. Obviously we talked about like the Obi-Wan plot hole, him not recognizing R2 or C-3PO, but one of the ones that I found was like at the very beginning of the movie, Princess Leia is captured by Darth Vader, and she says like, oh, I'm on a diplomatic mission to Alderaan and stuff like that. And it's like, lady, you were literally just fleeing the Battle of Scarif and Rogue One.
Right,
here.
yeah.
Like,
which this happens right after
like,
that.
Could you tell like a less convincing story?
Right.
Here? But no, I think Vader just not being whiny like Anakin was in the prequels is definitely something that is kind of like a weird plot device, because you really never see like Anakin like morph out of that completely at episode 3, because you have him like screaming,
I hate you.
Well, screaming no, like in the Vader suit. So it's kind of interesting to see that. Okay, you went from that to like being like one of the most baller movie villains of all time.
Yeah.
Here. We talked about like the Obi-Wan fight with Vader. Definitely a downgrade compared to what we got in episode 3, because they're doing a whole bunch of gymnastic flips and
spinnings and kickings
and wrecking stuff, and they have to fight on debris and stuff. So yeah, but another one, Han Solo is more selfish in this movie than he is in Solo, which I kind of found really weird, because typically like in movies, when a character starts coming around on like, a better moral path, they typically stay there or like, progress more and more towards that. Because in Solo, he's actually getting involved in like, helping those people out at the end.
Yep.
He's doing it not necessarily for like, money or anything like that. And then in this movie, like it literally takes Luke saying like, hey, we need to save this princess lady. And he's like, nope, I'm out. I don't want to deal with it. He's like, she's probably rich, bro. And he's like, all right, well, I guess I'll go do it.
Do it for the credits. Yeah, it's way more. It's a regress for sure, but we also don't know what happened to him from Solo to then, where more bad stuff could happen to him, possibly made him more jaded.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know what that's going to be looking like because we were supposed to get more movies with young Han Solo. I mean, I don't know what the status is of that, but
make Solo 2 happen.
I would imagine like maybe what's his girlfriend's name in Solo? Kira. Yeah, it might have something to do with Kira potentially.
Could be, yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean that's what I pretty much got. What about you?
Yeah, I just thought like the regression of Han Solo was a little interesting. Rogue One explains this movie really well.
It does.
Sets it up super well and makes it that much more worth watching as far as the story itself.
I mean, it does deal with the biggest plot hole of this movie that people have been like pointing out for like the longest time, which apparently everybody's a space engineer and knows how Death Stars are built. But they said like, oh, the exhaust port, that shouldn't be a thing. That shouldn't be like the weak spot or something like that. Like
her dad designed it that way.
Exactly. So what else you got?
Yeah.
But
so yeah, it makes sense, and it just adds more depth to the story itself. I feel like.
Yeah.
So if I were to go back already, I'd probably have us watch Solo, then Rogue One or something.
Yeah.
If we just decided to do the mainline movies.
Yeah.
But if we watched Rogue One going into this, I think it would have been really good.
That'd be interesting. We probably do have to do like a throwback on Rogue One and Solo, just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Best and favorite quotes.
I mean, what line in this movie is not quotable? I feel like
most of them, most of them are.
The majority, like pretty much like 90% of this movie is quotable, or at least is going to have like a quotable line.
Yeah, a couple I wrote down. So, "We're Doomed" by C-3PO.
Yep.
Is a classic.
Yep.
"Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope."
Yep.
Leia.
"I find your lack of faith disturbing," which I think that might be my favorite out of this one, just because
me too.
It's very fitting for like the context, because he's like talking smack about like his ancient religion and all that, and then he's like, "What you got?"
Pretty much, yeah. And then the classic Jedi mind trick. You don't need to see his identification.
Yeah.
These are not the droids you're looking for, Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
And then Han's classic, "I got a bad feeling about this."
Another one that I didn't write it down, but Han, like when he's in the trash compactor and like the walls are getting really, really close, he's like, "Well, one thing's for sure, we're going to be a lot thinner here."
Oh, yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
And then like the kind of overshadowing what Luke's going to do, like when he's like, "It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats on my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters."
Whatever that means.
Yeah. I don't know. I still don't know what it means.
Yeah.
I'm sure other people have dissected that sentence, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
And then use the Force, Luke.
I mean, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Run, Luke. Run.
Yeah. No, I mean, for like the best parts of this movie, I mean, this is like
that is pod racing.
But it isn't.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah. Wrong movie.
Sorry.
No, I mean, pretty much for like the most part of this movie, like I think like it's just classic and iconic here. I mean, almost like any frame of this movie, you could like show it to somebody, say, "Hey, what's this movie from?" It's like, "Oh yeah, that's Star Wars here," but no, I think just like some specific scenes that I think really stand out to me. Pretty much like the first couple scenes that you see Obi-Wan,
yeah,
where you get to see him scare off the Sand People,
He's just making those weird noises.
Yeah,
He's like,
which pretty much changes with every edition here.
I know, it is weird.
Yeah, and then you also have him like just revealing himself to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, because he's just what does he go by? Just Ben
Kenobi.
Yeah, just Ben Kenobi out in the
which
dunes.
Luke, how do you not make that little link there? Same last name.
Yeah,
Obi-Wan, Ben. Close enough.
But anyhow, so then he goes to his residence here, and he's telling them all about like the Force, the Jedi, and like basically
Clone Wars.
Yeah, the lore about like everything that's been happening here. But another one, the Sand People, when they ambush Luke, that scared the piss out of me.
Oh yeah, I was super. Every time, I'd always be afraid of that.
Yeah, and like I just remember that being like, okay, it's too scary.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, is it over? I'm like, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
But like pretty much like even like when I got the VHSs like for like I think Christmas or my birthday one year, I would always fast forward that scene. I'm like, yeah, let's I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a quite the scene as a child.
Yeah. And then the trench run at the very end, where they're going in the trenches of the Death Star and like flying along it to blow it up at the exhaust port, like gives me goosebumps every single time, just because it just really gets down to the wire and the very last do or die, very last second. And you have that John Williams score accompanying that. Oh yeah, that whole scene. And just how iconic is that score?
Super iconic.
I mean,
everyone knows when you hear that what that is. Yeah, Star Wars.
No, like I don't gush about like too many movie scores, really, to be honest.
Harry Potter's another good one.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a pretty solid one, but no, I mean this is like probably as iconic of a movie score as you can get, probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. The different tropes in this movie. I mean, it's a classic hero's journey, coming of age story.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
No, it absolutely is.
All right, what are your final thoughts on this movie?
So, like we mentioned earlier in the show, this is my favorite Star Wars movie. I just love the world building. I love the introduction to these iconic characters. And this is a movie that became a template on how to introduce audiences to new worlds, I feel like. I don't think we would have like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings if this movie was not made. I think this probably is the most important movie made, period, just because of its impact on the movie industry.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this movie is like so airtight, it's really hard to critique, and that's not really what we're doing. We're just kind of sharing our love of it, I guess. But like we'll see kind of going through this, how my ratings change, but it may jump one just from how airtight that movie actually is.
Yeah.
And just from the rewatch and being so ingrained in like the sequel trilogy, how much better I feel like this movie is.
Right. Because
than those movies.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's like, yeah, because for the last couple of years, we've been thinking of Star Wars as essentially the original trilogy with a new coat of paint for the most part here.
Yeah.
And we're also dealing with Clone Wars. We dealt with the prequels for a while here. So I mean, yeah, just going back to this original era, it's a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of looking at next week, we have our episode 5, Throwback Thursday. Don't miss our Monday Nerd News, but I think that's it.
That's all I got.
That's all we got. So thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. Check us out on the internets and all that, and on Patreon. Have an awesome week. Remember, everyone's a nerd about something.